We're standing on the edge of a massive technological shift. Seriously, think about it. We're moving away from devices we hold in our hands to devices permanently perched right on our faces, fully equipped with cameras, microphones, and a direct, constant link to artificial intelligence. From smartphones to AI glasses, the next frontier of surveillance and privacy isn't just coming, it is already here. I mean, imagine sitting next to someone wearing these glasses on your morning train commute or at your local coffee shop, or even at work. What actually happens when AI is always watching from the bridge of your nose? We're not just talking about a secret hidden camera anymore. We're talking about a continuous, wearable sensor that interacts with the physical world in ways that bystanders, people like you and me, might not even realize is happening. So for this explainer, here's our roadmap. We're going to cover wearable sensors, the invisible privacy risks, the looming facial recognition threat, the global legal patchwork, rewriting university policies, and finally, the massive internet governance frontier. Let's jump right into Section 1, wearable sensors, not just cameras. Looking at the physical devices themselves, like the recent Meta AI glasses created with Essilor Luxottica, we literally have to stop thinking of these things as just cameras. It's a total paradigm shift. With your traditional smartphone camera, a person points a lens and a photograph is saved. It's just a static record, right? But with AI glasses, the person actually becomes a node. The cameras and open-ear microphones act as continuous sensors. All that data goes straight to the cloud, where an AI makes inferences, potentially storing that data for training and generating entirely new information about the environment. The AI doesn't just record, it actively interprets. Now, Meta does use a front-facing LED light to indicate when conventional photos or videos are being recorded for a user's gallery. But get this, current documentation reveals a massive loophole. If the wearer is using the AI to, say, identify a plant, translate a cafe menu, or ask a question about a landmark, that capture LED might stay completely dark. Why? Because Meta doesn't classify that as capturing content for sharing. You could be staring right at someone's glasses, see absolutely no light, and mistakenly believe you are entirely off the grid, yet that camera is still feeding visual data to an AI system in the cloud. Wild, right? Which brings us to Section 2, the invisible privacy risks. Imagine you're a barista, or you're working retail. A customer walks in wearing smart glasses. Well, you can't exactly just leave your post. You can't demand they stop recording. The power dynamic there completely strips away your ability to consent. As The Verge documented just this past August, in 2026, workplace surveillance is becoming a covert reality entirely because of this asymmetry of power between the glasses wearer and the subject. Basically, bystander consent gets completely bypassed. The person who bought the glasses accepted the privacy policy for sure, but you, sitting next to them on the bus, you certainly didn't. Your face, your documents, your behaviors, they are all exposed to a device you have zero control over. Plus, product documentation notes that photos processed with AI might actually be stored and used to train future models, sometimes even with human reviewers looking at them. And yeah, while companies try to prevent people from taping over those LED lights, tampering still happens all the time. It's becoming such a huge headache that British cinema operators and even courts in England and Wales have actually started restricting these camera-equipped glasses outright just to prevent piracy and protect privacy.
Okay, Section 3, the facial recognition threat.
Here's where things get truly alarming. It's about how incredibly fast this tech could pivot from just recognizing objects to identifying humans. Now, Meta explicitly states facial recognition isn't currently active in consumer products, but Wired found unreleased code, literally called nametag and connections, hidden right inside Meta's AI companion app back in June 2026. Meta called this exploratory work and scrubbed the code shortly after it was reported. But come on, it proves that the hardware sitting on people's faces right now is already highly capable of doing this. I mean, a single software update could instantly transform a harmless object recognition tool into a mass biometric identification device. The Guardian also reported in August 2026 on patent applications for person recognition. If these devices make the jump from what am I looking at to who am I looking at, the entire privacy equation breaks. The regulatory risk we're facing doesn't just depend on the hardware you buy today, it depends on the software update that downloads tomorrow night while you're sleeping. Let's look at Section 4, a global legal patchwork. To understand how the world is actually responding to this fast-moving target, we have to look at the highly fragmented legal landscape. And first, let's get our terms straight. A photograph of a face isn't always biometric data until it undergoes very specific technical processing. If a device captures your face, okay, That's a photograph, but if a device extracts your features to create a facial template and then compares it to a database to uniquely identify you, that is a biometric face print. And that single, highly technical distinction dictates exactly how the law reacts. This maps out how different jurisdictions are treating the exact same pair of glasses. In the European Union, the GDPR heavily restricts biometrics, and their new AI Act strictly prohibits using AI for emotion recognition in schools and workplaces. Over in the US, it's kind of a Wild West. There's no comprehensive federal privacy law matching the GDPR, so we've got a sectoral patchwork. You've got strict biometric protections in Illinois under BIPA, and the FTC monitoring deceptive practices. Meanwhile, in Puerto Rico, their penal code criminalizes covert recording where there's an expectation of privacy, plus a brand new August 2026 law protects against AI-generated clones. And in Germany, a group called Hate Aid recently filed criminal complaints, arguing these classes might actually violate laws against covert espionage devices. It is, to put it mildly, a wildly inconsistent patchwork. Which brings us to Section 5, Rewriting University Policies. This massive legal headache is currently clashing with a major real-world battleground, higher education. Puerto Rico's K-12 system actually issued a blanket ban on smart glasses this year. But in higher education, an outright ban genuinely harms adult students with visual disabilities who rely on these AI glasses for accessibility, to read text, navigate around campus, or describe their surroundings hands-free. This is exactly why universities need a far more sophisticated framework than just saying no. Implementing a 3-tier risk model is a brilliant way to protect sensitive spaces while preserving those legitimate uses and accessibility needs. Think of it like a traffic light. In a red zone, like a final exam, a medical clinic, or a counseling center, the devices are strictly prohibited. In an amber zone, like a standard classroom or a lab, they require explicit prior consent and a clear educational purpose before any AI vision or recording features get turned on. And in green zones, like a public campus quad, they are permitted, but automated facial identification and emotion analysis have to remain strictly disabled by default. University policies really have to move beyond a simple no recording rule. They need to specifically regulate these 5 sequential capabilities, especially when institutional review boards are involved in research. Let's say a professor uses AI glasses to interview a research subject. A traditional consent form saying this will be recorded just doesn't cut it anymore. The subject needs to know if their visual data is going to a cloud provider, if it's being used for biometric identification, or if an AI is actively making inferences about their behavior. We absolutely have to govern the entire chain of data. Finally, Section 6, the Internet Governance Frontier. Zooming out to the macro level, we really can't just sit around and wait for privacy disasters to happen before we react. As researchers Arantes and Welsman pointed out in 2026, these devices are rapidly blurring the boundary between a helpful learning tool and environmental surveillance. This requires what they call anticipatory governance. We have to set the guardrails right now. We need to govern the entire chain from capture to inference to storage before a silent software update turns every pair of stylish sunglasses into a walking biometric checkpoint. Ultimately, this leaves us with what is arguably the most provocative internet governance dilemma of our time. If you are just out in public, does the person standing next to you have the right to feed your face, your voice, and your emotions into an AI model completely without your consent? As we move past the era of the smartphone and into the era of the AI sensor, that is the exact question we and the law must answer.